Wow, I don't think we've had this many positive news stories in one day for months. It's really fascinating what's happening with Bitcoin right now. We've got two new countries accepting Bitcoin. We have companies buying up everything. Bitcoins on the exchanges are being swept clean. We've got bullish inflation data. Donald Trump is making a new investment deal with the Saudis. The fundamentals are also looking good, and the Bitcoin price is back, in the positive as well. In my opinion, though, the Bitcoin price could get a lot more bullish here. So go ahead and smash that like button so we can really kick off this bull run. Take a second and hit that subscribe button. We've now reached 38,000 subscribers. Thank you for that, but if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so now so you always get the latest news here for free. And the craziest thing is that we now have two new countries on board that are accepting Bitcoin. But first, we need to go through all the other positive news. I hope I don't forget anything. So many things are happening. It's really overwhelming. You make a video, and it feels like 30 minutes later, 5 more things have happened. So today is really one of those days that's just absolutely crazy, but we'll get to the countries later. First, let's talk about the other stories, which are all bullish each one. More bullish than the last. We're on the verge of a really bullish move here. Fred Krueger is saying it here too. All-time high. Could happen this Friday, at least that's his prediction. Even the traditional financial markets are looking very positive again right now. The S&P 500 is back in the green for the year, and that's really important because it's crucial for the traditional financial markets to move along as well, since they can help push Bitcoin even higher. But on the other hand, Bitcoin has outperformed something like the S&P here, and yet people still say Bitcoin is risky or something like that. Anyone who says that is just a banana head. They either have the wrong time perspective, they're just not educated enough, they haven't really looked into the subject. To say nowadays that Bitcoin is risky, dangerous, or anything like that is just completely made up. And that's why it's so important to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And we can see it here as well. The fear and greed index in the traditional markets is back up to 66. That means we're slowly moving back into a bullish phase. But of course, you also have to be careful. When we get too bullish, that's often a sign that we're about to see a sell-off. But we already had liquidations yesterday. That means a lot of highly leveraged traders have already been flushed out of the market for now. Here, the inflation data is also very bullish. It's not hyper bullish, but definitely somewhat bullish. We can see here that the consumer price index inflation dropped to 2.3% in April, which is below the expected 2.4%. Core inflation is exactly in line with expectations at 2.8%. Expected was 2.8%, and that's what we got. And why is that bullish? Because the lower the inflation here, the more room. The Federal Reserve has to lower interest rates, meaning they can inject more money into the markets and stimulate them, since the Fed just needs to make sure inflation doesn't get out of control. But if we keep getting inflation data that keeps dropping, then sooner or later the Fed will have to step in. Donald Trump has been saying this for a long time. Jerome Powell, look at the inflation data. Look at the inflation data. We're going down, we're going down, we're going down. Go ahead and finally lower the interest rates. We don't have an inflation problem here anymore. I would say still not everything is set in stone yet, because we still have the issue with tariffs. There could be an escalation at any time here, and that's why the Federal Reserve, the central bank in the US, is still keeping its options open and allowing for some flexibility, because if there were another escalation, inflation could skyrocket pretty quickly. Skyrocket is, of course, an awesome word, but I got it from here because now there's actually a chart and now things are about to get really wild. Here you can see that digital gold is now escalating in Google searches. People are now starting to search for digital gold. The Google trends for Bitcoin, if we search for Bitcoin, aren't really high yet, but if we look for digital gold, the search queries are really starting to rise. We also see here, in a new study from River, that in fact the current buyers are only companies. We see here, businesses are the largest net buyer of Bitcoins so far this year. And of course, strategy is leading the way. We can see here that companies have bought up 157,000 Bitcoins, while individuals have sold off 247,000 Bitcoins. That means we're seeing a shift here from individuals, what I always call banana heads, who just don't do their research, who sell off their Bitcoin, and then companies like MicroStrategy and so on, even BlackRock, are the ones buying it up. I always warn people, hey, be careful if you're selling your Bitcoin here. Strategy, BlackRock, all these investment firms that are coming in now, Cantor, Fischwald, 21 Capital. Now there's also Nakamoto. Then there are other things we'll take a look at in a moment. They're buying up your Bitcoin aggressively, and they're going to hold onto it. They're not going to sell their Bitcoin anymore either. Michael Saylor isn't even thinking about it. He's taking his Bitcoin to the grave with him. And anyone who doesn't pay attention now is going to get completely wiped out. Then later, you can buy back your Bitcoin for 500, 600, or 700,000 US dollars. I mean, you can see that very clearly. We can see here that businesses, companies are clearly getting involved. And next, countries could join in too. And if individuals don't pay attention, then we're going to have a really, really big problem here. I mean, you guys are already in the game. That's really, really good. But we can also see that retail investors aren't here yet. Right now, the hype we're seeing is being driven by institutions, and maybe soon by nation states as well, which we'll take a look at in a moment. We can also see here that huge amounts of Bitcoin are being withdrawn from the exchanges. Whales must know something that we don't, and they simply know what I've been saying all along, that we only have a limited number of Bitcoins, that MicroStrategy alone is buying more Bitcoin than the miners are mining per day and much more. They know that an absolute supply shock is coming our way. Just take a look at how they're accumulating Bitcoin here and how Bitcoin is flowing out of the exchanges. You can see it even better here. Here you can see we keep going further and further and further down, 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 down. The Bitcoin price keeps rising, 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 rising. And if we have fewer and fewer Bitcoins on the exchanges, that also means the multiplier effect gets even stronger and we can push the Bitcoin price up with less and less capital. That means if the demand for Bitcoin suddenly skyrockets, we could see rapid price increases here. The scenario that several people have already predicted, that we could see a very exponential price increase this year, is becoming more likely. This is intensifying now because of things like whales buying, strong hands buying, weak hands selling, over-leveraged people getting shaken out, and exchanges running out of Bitcoin, or, well, not completely out, but with less and less Bitcoin available. And now there are all sorts of things happening, like here Galaxy Digital reports that they own 12,800 Bitcoin. So they've definitely increased their Bitcoin holdings. We're now seeing all these reports that people have increased their Bitcoin positions. For example, how crazy is this? New public AI company called Next Technology just goes and buys 5,000 Bitcoin. Just a random company, totally random. Nobody knows them, not a single soul. But they just go and buy 5,000 Bitcoin, almost as much Bitcoin as El Salvador holds. I mean, how insane is that? Then we have stories like this. Just like that, they casually pick up a few more Bitcoin, added a few hundred more here. Latin American e-commerce giant Mercado Libre keeps adding to their stash. I mean, it actually doesn't make any sense that they're buying Bitcoin. Their main business has nothing to do with Bitcoin, but they know they need a treasury strategy. So they're hoarding Bitcoin like crazy, and they'll snatch up all the Bitcoin if you're not paying attention. UBS, one of the most important banks, is now saying that suddenly their clients are holding up to 5% of their assets in crypto. How wild is that? 5% allocation. I always dreamed that maybe in this bull run, we'd see 1 or 2% allocations, maybe up to 1% allocation. And now they're talking about up to 5% allocation. And those are huge levers. And I mean, if that happens, if clients at all the banks end up holding 5% in Bitcoin, I mean, you can do the math yourself to see where the Bitcoin price would go. And then we have things like this, which are obviously also bullish for the general markets. So you can really see it's almost impossible to keep up with all the news. Saudi Arabia is investing 600 billion here in the not in the United Arab Emirates, in the USA. Here, we see Donald Trump signing all of this. Here is the strategic economic partnership with Saudi Arabia. I think this could also be seen as bullish by the markets, simply because there are now more strategic deals in place. There have always been speculations about whether Donald Trump and the USA are at odds with the Saudis, especially since the petrodollar deal doesn't really exist anymore. So it's actually pretty good news that there's now a strategic partnership again, at least for the traditional markets. It's not that relevant for Bitcoin right now, but indirectly, of course, the traditional markets do affect Bitcoin as well. And now we've got a crazy story here, because you really have to check this out. Now we have Bhutan, and Bhutan is currently the country with the highest amount of Bitcoin capita. So there's no country in the world that has as much Bitcoin per person or even per GDP. They've actually sold off a bit recently because the Bitcoin they earn through mining is actually reinvested back into the country, into infrastructure and so on. So they really do use Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is also a tool that's actually meant for this purpose, that if you need the money, you can liquidate it, sell it, and use it. Now check out what CNBC is saying about Bhutan, because there's some massive news here.
Tell me the vision behind this. Is Bhutan a test bed for what you're going to do in many other countries around the world?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's another key milestone. I mean, this initiative represents another key milestone in terms of crypto adoption and deployment globally. What it does is, travelers and tourists going forward can make use of a very seamless, very cost-efficient way of paying locally, everything from things like flights, accommodations, meals, even your local tour guides, and when you're buying from local merchants in Bhutan, right? So it's another big initiative by Kingdom of Bhutan. It's powered by Binance Pay, and we work locally with the DK Bank to bring this about.
So what we have here is a partnership between Binance and Bhutan, and the CEO of Binance was a guest on CNBC, talking about how Bhutan is now the first country in the world to accept Bitcoin and crypto payments specifically for tourists. So it's basically a legal tender status here, if I understood this correctly. That means what used to be legal tender in El Salvador is now the case here in Bhutan. I'm curious to see if the International Monetary Fund will stop by soon, but I don't know if they have any loans from the IMF here. So the way it sounds to me now, the legal tender status in Bhutan has just been taken to the next level, and they really want to actively push Bitcoin payments here. They also want to attract tourism to Bhutan, because what's always been special about Bhutan is that they've actually had a secret Bitcoin strategy. That was also under the radar for about 3 or 4 years. They were running Bitcoin mining operations. People didn't really talk about it. It also wasn't really accepted as a means of payment. No one even knew that they were mining Bitcoin in the background. Then it came out because of a leak. And then for about a year, it was kind of like, yeah, okay, we're doing a bit of Bitcoin mining, a bit of Bitcoin here and there. Then there was some kind of Bitcoin conference where people like Nico Jock and Alex Frankenberg were invited. But only now are they actively going public, just like El Salvador or other Bitcoin hotspots, saying, hey, we want to attract all tourists to Bhutan now. We're now pursuing an aggressive Bitcoin strategy. We're opening up completely to Bitcoin, and that's how I understand it. That means I really think you can equate this with a legal tender status that's happening here. And now it's getting even more intense. Now it's not just Bhutan. We're seeing Dubai become the first government in the Middle East to accept Bitcoin and crypto. Bitcoin is spreading worldwide. This is literally making history right now. So now we have the next mega bombshell, or I don't even know what to call it here. Dubai, which is of course a powerhouse region, where tons of Bitcoin and crypto people already hang out, is now opening up even more to Bitcoin. And the EU is sleeping on it, Germany is sleeping on it. I really think all of this is stemming from Donald Trump. Donald Trump has triggered a chain reaction here. Now we're seeing one country after another opening up. Countries are outdoing each other with Bitcoin reserves, with all kinds of tourism attractions. Here you can pay with Bitcoin, there you can now pay taxes, and honestly, probably no one will actually pay their taxes with Bitcoin. It's really just about the symbolism. I mean, maybe a few people will pay their taxes with Bitcoin, but it's always about the symbolism. Even if hardly anyone actually pays with Bitcoin, it's always about the symbolism. Even in El Salvador, yeah, Bitcoin is legal tender, or at least partly not anymore. You can still pay with Bitcoin in many places. To be honest, a lot of people just come here because they want to experience the Bitcoin hype. In the end, they still pay with their dollars, but Bitcoin still helps because the message gets spread to the outside world. And even if you're in a shop, if you own a store or something, you don't accept Bitcoin because 1,000 people are going to come pay with Bitcoin, but because you're sending a signal to the market. Hey, Bitcoin is here to stay. Bitcoin isn't going away. And we're part of this movement. And that's exactly the idea here as well. So let me know in the comments what you think about this. I think it's absolutely crazy what's happening here. And I haven't even included everything that happened today. I really had to cut out a few things here. It's honestly wild. If you still want to buy Bitcoin, I'll put a link below to 21 Bitcoin, where you can easily and securely buy Bitcoin. With the code Bitcoin Hotel, you can still get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Definitely check it out, because like I told you, the companies, the businesses, the countries, they're all buying up the Bitcoin before you. So sign up at 21 Bitcoin. Get ready, buy Bitcoin, because being in early matters, no financial advice. See you soon. Until then, peace out.